Hello and welcome to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. Thank you so much for joining us today. You know, the holidays are upon us. Halloween is past. Thanksgiving just a few short days away. Actually, it's a couple of weeks, but it seems like just a few short days. I can't wait to get my teeth wrapped around what I normally get my teeth wrapped around. It's coming, and I can't wait. Well, you know, and sometimes we eat too much just because it's the holidays, or maybe there's something else involved when we do the things that we shouldn't do or don't do those things that we should. Our guest in studio today is Dr. Kyra Bobinet, a physician turned behavior designer, brain expert, and author of Well-Designed Life, 10 Lessons in Brain Science and Design Thinking for Mindful, Healthful, and Purposeful Life. She's here today to discuss with us some of the reasons why sometimes we do the things that we shouldn't and vice versa. How are you doing today, Dr. Bobinet?
I'm doing very well. Thank you, Neal.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, you received your training and your schooling at several different colleges, right?
Right. I went to medical school at UCSF and found that by the time I was done starting a nonprofit for incarcerated teens who had repeated behaviors that needed to change, that I was more interested in behavior change. And there was really nothing for me in writing prescriptions and that sort of thing. So I switched over to public health, went to Harvard for my master's in public health, and then went on there as a career in designing and changing behavior through using brain science, neuroscience.
At Stanford School of Medicine, you were involved in some teaching there, yeah?
I do. I teach at Stanford now, and we develop courses that have to do with this interface for physicians and people in healthcare and health and wellness industries to learn how to change people's behavior, because it's not something that is right now offered in professional degree programs in health education.
And I would assume that a change in behavior is key when it comes to bettering one's health, just like behaviors deplete one's good health, yeah?
Exactly. And that's the thing that's really coming out recently, is that as all of this technology, mobile apps to track your fitness and your diet and those kinds of things are happening, what's coming up is that people are not using them the way that the app creators thought they would. They're in fact abandoning them. Wearables and those kinds of things are not being used consistently and long term. So now the industry is saying, wait a minute, you know, we built all this stuff, we thought they would come, and there's something more to it. And so that's what's shining the light now on behavior science as the solution, and also design thinking.
Behavior science, that's not something, it's not a term that I've heard actually ever. Are you part of a movement in behavioral science, or are you basically a pioneer in your specific area of research?
Yeah, I think, for me, how I got there was having so many patients, having so many, I mentioned the youth that I would create a program for, and even studies that I've done in metabolic medicine where a patient in one of my studies said, I'm having such a great time, I'm learning what I should do. She said, and she pauses and she says, but I know what I should do. I don't know why I don't do it. And I was like, wow, isn't that what we all do? Isn't that what we all face? And so by asking that question, it really led to the brain and how there's this brain behavior gap between what we intend to do and what our brains are on autopilot to have us do.
I've heard quite a bit through the years about left brain, right brain, but you deal more with slow brain, fast brain. Talk a little bit about slow brain versus fast brain.
Right, exactly. So, we're lucky to live in an era where there's enough evidence bubbling up to the mass consciousness around this kind of system 1 and system 2 thinking is how behavioral psychologists first described it. fMRI, which is a way of visualizing the brain, has discovered neuroplasticity, which is the lifelong ability to change your brain. So there's a lot of effort right now around, change your brain and make your brain better. And, even memory testing and things like that have gotten better. And how it relates to behavior is that you have a bunch of, we'll call it super highways. And much like a highway, these are paved with something called myelin, which makes the signal in the brain super fast. And so my shorthand way of referring to this, it's kind of lubricant, if you will, for electrical wires in your brain. And so the things that we do habitually are all myelinated. They are covered in myelin and then go super fast. And so how this shows up in physical life is, I promised myself yesterday I won't eat cookies. And then today I throw a cookie in my mouth just habitually using my fast brain before my slow brain, who made the promise yesterday, realizes, oh, I meant to not put cookies in my mouth. And so then shame comes up. Then we feel badly about ourselves. And what I want to do is just tell people, no, that's just the architecture of your brain. And if you know the architecture, then you can set more realistic patterns for how to change your behavior and not hold yourself accountable for things that are not under your control right now.
Okay, now we're talking fast brain, slow brain. Which side of the brain or which speed brain should we concentrate on when we're really looking to change our behaviors?
Right. So, fast brain, slow brain is a metaphor, and it just it just describes anything in the brain that is set up to be automated versus things that take some thought or take some problem solving.
And that's my question. Which should we focus on? Should we focus on changing that which happens kind of automatically, or begin to start thinking about thinking?
Right, exactly. So that's what behavior design comes in, because behavior design is really about making what needs to be fast, and making what is too fast, slow. So in the case of the cookie, if I freeze the cookies or I throw away the cookies, then I'm giving my slow brain a chance to catch up with that by using something called friction. You put friction in the pathway to give you a pause to catch up with that moment so that you don't do what's habitual. In the case of something I'm trying to do that's completely new, if I make it as easy and frictionless as possible, taking friction out, like putting my running shoes by the door if I want to go running, or those kinds of things, that helps our slow brain intentions become faster and more competitive with the existing fast brain habits.
Okay, so are we talking subconscious and conscious mind here?
Absolutely. So our unconscious mind runs 95% of our behaviors, whereas our conscious mind is only in charge of 5%. So it's really this inequity that we're trying to control for when we use friction to slow down the unconscious, to slow down what's habitual, and take out friction and make it easier when we want to do something new.
Now, you're a physician turned behavior designer, brain expert, and so much more, including an author. You're the author of Well-Designed Life, 10 Lessons in Brain Science and Design Thinking for a Mindful, Healthy, and Purposeful Life. Why did you write this book as opposed to, or I guess in addition to public speaking and just your practice in general? Why a book?
Right. So, the question I kept getting after keynotes, so I do keynotes in front of hundreds, thousands of people, and they kept asking me in the Q&A, where can I learn more about this? How can I understand this further? And there's a lot of people who are either in charge of themselves, their families, it's the work they do, they're physicians, they're nurses, whatever their role is, and they want to change behavior on some level, and they wanted to know the science and the patterns. So the book is really about distilling down hundreds of articles, dozens of books, decades of experience into a pithy sort of, here's the best hits of behavior science and neuroscience, and translating it in a way that is accessible and usable and translatable.
Great. Now, as we wrap up this segment, I'd like you to give our listeners as much information as you can about where to get more information about you, your practice, and your book as well.
Absolutely. So the book is on Amazon, both available in paperback and Kindle. And then the website for looking into more is designyourbehavior.com.
Great. You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neal Howard. We've been in studio today talking with Dr. Kyra Bobinet, CEO of engagedIN, a design firm using neuroscience to change behavior, for which she received the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health Innovator Award. She's also a sought-after national speaker and has founded health startups, created blockbuster products, health apps, big data algorithms, and evidence-based programs in mind, body, and metabolic medicine. And she's been here today talking with us about some of the reasons why we do some of the things that we should and why we don't do some of the things that we should be doing. It's been great having you here with us today, Dr. Bobinet.
My pleasure, Neal. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Transcripts and audio of this program are available at healthprofessionalradio.com.au and also at hpr.fm, and you can subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.